The US and the Taliban have gathered in Doha for the 7th round of peace talks. At stake is the Taliban's return to power and the departure of foreign troops from Afghanistan. As the US pushes to strike a peaceful withdrawal deal with the Taliban in Qatar, here in Afghanistan, the country's Elections Commission and candidates are preparing to launch campaigns for the September 28 presidential election. Up to this point, the Afghan government has been left out of the Doha negotiations, and while talking peace, Taliban offensives across Afghanistan have increased, and daily death tolls are mounting on both sides. I spoke to President Ashraf Ghani on the challenges facing peace, elections, his government, and Afghanistan. Mr. President, thank you for taking the time to speak with TRT World this morning.
Well, it's a pleasure to welcome you, and my best wishes to the Turkish people.
The Taliban have made no secret of their plans to restore the emirate. The Americans are keen to withdraw. In the Doha Talks, it appears as though the Taliban have the upper hand and the Americans are making the concessions. Do you think the Doha Talks will bring lasting peace to Afghanistan?
Emirates was never accepted by the people of Afghanistan. It was imposed by force. Our Lojirga, the Consultative Grand Assembly of 29th April, 2nd June, categorically has endorsed the notion of republic. Peace must take place within the concept of the republic, not the concept of the emirate. Second, any peace process has a phase of preparing for an agreement, concluding an agreement, and then acquiring an endorsement. The endorsement of any agreement must be done by the people of Afghanistan, either through Afghan parliament, through a Lojirga, or through a referendum. So we need to know that there are phases to this. The discussions between the United States and Taliban are focused on 4 components. Nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. We, the government of Afghanistan, have asked for a review of level of American troop presence as early as January. So there's no disagreement on that issue. I'm sure you probably have other questions. The question of Taliban commitment vis-a-vis their relations with terrorist networks is not just to the Americans. This is a global issue. It's a regional issue, and particularly it's a national issue. So that is not an area where concessions are going to be granted very easily. We need to have guarantees in a system of verification. The third area is ceasefire, which we have successfully done. The fourth one is, of course, talk between the government of Afghanistan and Taliban, and we need to negotiate. There are also 2 other issues that are fundamental. One is the question of drugs, because the relation of Taliban to the criminal economy is a global issue and a regional issue. Now it's gone past heroin to production of meth and crystal. And unless we focus on this, the world. And second is the critical role of the relation of Taliban with Pakistan. To say that concessions are being made, I think, is premature.
You have made many overtures to the Taliban, but they continue to refuse to engage with the Afghan government. Why is this?
Well, because of the ideological reason. The notion of the emirate, and because of their dependencies. But first, of course, we had breakthroughs. In 2018, for the first time in 40 years, we held a successful ceasefire. And that ceasefire was a controlled experiment. Tens of thousands of Taliban mixed with their fellow Afghan citizens, and after that, they were extremely reluctant to resume fighting. So one really needs to differentiate between rank and file, who clearly during the ceasefire indicated. This is all peace processes are complicated, all areas. So there's nothing new in the process of refusal. But the goal of seeking peace, as our Lojirga again is articulated, is the goal to which, for the realization of which I'm dedicated.
There seems to be some dispute over who controls most of the territory. Does this even matter? And do you believe that concessions should be made on the basis of who controls more territory?
Well, there are two ways of looking at this. First, if you're looking at the formal figures, of nearly 400 districts, only 22 are under Taliban control. That gives you the percentage. Second, we need to look at what ground means. Most of the population of Afghanistan is today in the cities. Kabul is at least around 5 million, the province. So that's 1/6 of the population. And you take the other population centers, it comes to very significant. The Taliban do not control a single city. Second, or major agricultural areas. These depend very heavily on 5 river systems, and again, the highways and others. The third are pastures and then the mountains. So most, when we say freedom of movement, they have freedom of movement because of their networks. But control is not defined negatively. Any Talib who wants a passport or an identity card or health services depends on the government. They have not been, unlike the Chinese or Vietnamese, created an alternative system of delivery. The main issue, however, is their negative power, which the Lojirga and the people of Afghanistan acknowledge. It's the destructive power of killing citizens, attacking hospitals, attacking universities, attacking caravans. So because of this very factor, it's not the positive vision, it's the negative driver of war that this society acknowledges that requires a solution, and because of that, we are bound to seek solution. And because we put it first on the agenda, the excitement, but also the anxiety that comes with needing to see a change context is prevalent around us.
Mr. President, many Afghan opposition politicians appear to be jumping on the bandwagon of the US Taliban talks, possibly to secure their political futures following a deal, or perhaps because they are not convinced that there's an alternative. Can you give us some insights into your peace plan?
Well, first, my peace plan is inclusive. In the last round in Doha, where members of civil society, women's group, ulama, youth, a cross-section of the society has really participated. The defense of the republic spontaneously, but very clearly, is taken place. When we say politicians, these are not political parties that have large constituencies. Are they self-appointed? The fundamental issue is that the government of Afghanistan is the elected representative of the people. Unless we agree, nothing moves. Can a group of politicians release their political prisoners or engage with them? That is the authority of the government. So clearly, our peace plan is the following. One, build a coalition for peace, where the messages of all international and regional actors are coherent. When they talk separately and one by one with Taliban, it elevates their sense of importance. That does not reflect ground reality in medium and long-term interests of the international actors. Two, differentiate between dialogue and negotiations. The third is negotiation. Negotiation is focused among the two principal parties. And in terms of seeking an agreement, we seek an agreement in 2 phases. A preliminary agreement or a framework agreement prior to an election, hopefully by 1st of September, and then a comprehensive agreement after. And lastly is the question of implementation. We need to get it right. And enduring peace requires a lot of issues. And central to this, and all of this, is again the mechanism of public citizen-based endorsement.
The policies of regional states are crucial to matters of war and peace. Are they buying into your proposal for regional connectivity?
Absolutely. On regional connectivity, we're really getting traction. 4.5 years ago, Afghanistan was considered a landlocked, isolated country. Today, it's in the process of becoming an Asian roundabout. What we've done with our Central Asian neighbors and beyond them, Central Asia 5 and the Caucasus, I think is astounding. You know, there's such a world that is opened in terms of making sure our location for 200 years at disadvantage. In the next 100 years, I think is going to be the most valuable asset this country has, if we have the wisdom to articulate it. And Central Asia is the shortest way of connecting Asia. Afghanistan is the center of this. South Asia is the least connected part of the world in terms of regional connectivity, and equally a region starved for energy. The engine of growth that India has created cannot be fueled without further power, and Pakistan is desperate for power. So in this, we're repositioning. We're not only getting the concept, but the proof of concept is now there, particularly vis-a-vis power and natural gas and transport that is moving. The second issue is the region is in the process of transformation that only the United States witnessed roughly between 1840 and 1869. Asia is becoming a continental economy. Inter-Asia trade is larger now than Asia's trade with the rest of the world. In this environment, the transport revolution, the connectivity revolution, the fiber optics is key. So essential to this is change of perspective. In the short term, some of actors, of course, have taken an insurance policy, probably vis-a-vis the Taliban, but in the medium term, which we take a perspective of 10 years, a functioning government in Afghanistan is essential to regional stability and connectivity. And I think we are getting traction, but there's a lot still to do.
You mentioned Pakistan a couple of times already. You were recently in Pakistan, where I believe you had several meetings. Can you give us a sense of where you think the Pakistanis stand in all this? And what role do you think they're playing in the ongoing negotiations?
Well, first, I found my discussion with Prime Minister Khan, and when he brought the army chief and the ISI chief and others to the discussion, and equally with the business community of Pakistan and across the board with their cabinet, constructive. There were I asked a series of direct questions, and I got answers. The first is it in Pakistan's interest to have a Taliban run Afghanistan? The answer is no. Is it in Pakistan's national interest to have a dependent government in Kabul? They said not possible and not in their interest. 3, is connectivity to their interest and therefore the stability of Afghanistan? And the answer is yes. I think at the level of intention, we've had a change of perspective thanks to Prime Minister Khan and General Bajwa and his colleagues. Now we're focusing on getting the details right. But simultaneously, one has to understand that a change of perspective in the top does not mean immediately a change of perspective in the middle. The undeclared war launched from Pakistan against Afghanistan is continuing. Terrorist groups still have sanctuary and bases of support in the network of madrasas, where they are moving again for the first time. The government of Pakistan is changing the curriculum of the madrasas. The main issue for Pakistan, which Prime Minister Khan has repeatedly said, is have the policies of the past gained Pakistan or cost Pakistan? On that question depends the future of our relationship. Our goal is full cooperation between two sovereign states, where we are able to create mutual interest. And in terms of connectivity, in the talk that I gave in Islamabad, I tackled the question directly, saying what kind of guarantees we will create in order to make sure that this huge codependence that would be brought through cooperation on power, on gas, on connectivity, on fiber optics and others. In there's a framework. We can offer political guarantees. We can offer escrow accounts and penalties. We can offer management guarantees. And we can offer social and environmental guarantees. So we have thought our relationship through. We think we can work. Now it's going to depend. It literally is a vital question for Pakistan. Pakistan potentially is an extraordinarily productive country with a role to play. But policies of the past have gotten it to isolation, into a level where the crisis of indebtedness and poverty increase rather than poverty reduction is haunting its future. Prime Minister Khan is really dedicated to poverty eradication. If the agenda of poverty eradication, environment, connectivity that we all share becomes the basis, then I think we can move forward. But a lot depends on the decisions that are taken in the months to come.
On the issue of security, Taliban is not the only armed group operating in the country at the moment. There's also Daesh and there's others. And there is a lot of debate over the capacity of the Afghan National Security and Defense Forces to defend the state. Do you think that the Afghan National Security Forces can stand alone, or will they continue to need foreign support for some time to come?
Well, there are two components to that, and thank you for the question. First, let me pay tribute to the bravery, dedication, and patriotism of our forces. We filled the gap left by the departure of 100,000 international troops that, again, I had the honor during President Karzai to design and manage that process. The second part is question of terrorism is not our problem alone. That is a regional and international problem. Why do we insist on reaching peace deal with Taliban? Because Taliban provide the local platform for these other groups. Daesh too initially came on their platform, now that they're fighting. Taking them out of the fight will change the problem of violence to foreign invaders. Then the society can mobilize.
You had once mentioned the plan to US President Donald Trump on an idea on how to cut cost without abandoning Afghanistan. Were there any follow-up discussions?
Yes, absolutely. We've had continuous discussion, and I'm very pleased that we are doing cost cutting. We'll also have detailed discussions on numbers. Reduction at our request can take place to both bring economizing and more efficiency. And the key of this, again, has been the performance of our security forces, which are really taking the lead and getting stronger by the day.
You've served as president, finance minister, and at the World Bank. This has allowed you to look at Afghanistan from many different perspectives. What do you think are the enduring challenges facing Afghanistan?
We have 5 key issues. One is building a state that represents, and it can only be a democratic state, the wishes and aspirations of our people, particularly our women and youth. I hope that what I've shown during these 4.5 years, that Afghan women are second to none, and that the youth have a level of energy, talent, and creativity that allows them to truly own. I see myself as a bridge for this process. The second issue is building a market. You need functioning market institutions to utilize the immense natural capital of Afghanistan. The third process is peace building. Without peace, without enduring peace, the cost of war is so destructive but building peace requires overcoming the last 40 years. And the fourth is strengthening the process of national unity and nation building. And we are confident that each Afghan, regardless of the language that she or he speaks, feels much more connected to this home. And this process also means bringing our diaspora and our refugees back in. We have close to 4 million refugees, 1 million diaspora in the OECD countries, including Turkey. They're immensely talented. You know, one of the benefits of this tragedy has been a human capital in the diaspora that is stunning. And the fifth is regional connectivity. You cannot develop a country in the 21st century through autarky. It has to be through connectivity. These 5 processes, I think, will bring us to a place where Afghanistan would be able, after much pain, to harness its passion to development and to stability and peace.
There is a great deal of talk at the moment about the possibility of a US-Taliban peace deal being reached in the very near future, possibly in the coming weeks. If a peace deal is achieved in the coming weeks, how would that impact the elections?
It will not impact the election. First thing, we need to differentiate. The peace that will impact the election, if ever, is the peace between the Afghan government and Taliban, not peace between US and Taliban. As I said, it's a series of linkage. Second, our agreement with the US and our other interlocutors is to seek a preliminary peace, a framework agreement before the election. The election is critical because election is a certain process. It's a mandated process by the Constitution. And the next leader of Afghanistan, whether it's I or someone else, must have a mandate for peace, because peace is going to require hard decisions, hard bargaining, and being able to sell it back to the Afghan people. You know, they have to buy into peace.
And all this talk of an interim government?
That's nonsense. And no government has the right, democratically elected government has the right to dissolve itself. By what authority will an interim government be created?
Moving on, Mr. President, given the long historical relationship between Turkey and Afghanistan, do you see a larger role for Turkey in the near future?
Well, you know how we describe our relationship with Turkey. Short, medium, near, long, and very long term, without an expiry date. We've had relations for thousands of years. Turkey is been a very significant member of ISAF first, and then the Resolute Support Mission. And our economic relations with Turkey are improving, particularly now that Azerbaijan is connected by railway to the port of Ceyhan. It's opened up a new, our first trucks, TIR trucks, reached Istanbul. We're going to strength, and Turkey, as a significant previous chairman of the Islamic organization, as a regional power, and as a global actor, is critical to our discussion. And we are very confident not only that our relations will solidify, but go to further strength.
Finishing up, where do you see Afghanistan in 5 years?
A self-confident country, self-reliant, as a hub of regional connectivity, a platform for global and regional cooperation, a place where women and men will be able to claim their heritage, an Islamic, deeply Islamic country, both civilizationally and constitutionally, where our constitution is judged the most Islamic country, a country that would have healed some of its deep wounds and then would be embarking on a path of true glory for the rest of the 21st century. But also there are dangers and risks, so we cannot. That's the Afghanistan I want. It's now up to other interlocutors in the political debate and discussions to explain to the people of Afghanistan what they want. I'm confident that Afghans of today are embracing the vision that I'm articulating because in that vision they see themselves. And I hope that succession becomes a regular routine process where the torch is passed to the younger generation, and with their capabilities, teamwork, national unity, and a sense of regional and global understanding, they will take this ship to its destination.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you.